Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English 1110. This is your week 4 overview lecture. I am joined today by Ferris, the cat who is very noisy. So hopefully that will be the last time you see/hear her, but we will see how things go. We're going to go ahead and dive into things today for what you've got to have done, things to be thinking about that are optional to complete, and just things in general that you got to be thinking about in this 4th week of this semester. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. For some strange reason, it's been kind of finicky on my side of things, so I apologize if it is finicky on yours. Hopefully we will be able to do this lecture without too much issue. Hopefully you're also able to still see me as I lecture. For some strange reason, I can't see me while I lecture right now, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But this is your week 4 overview lecture with the readings, viewings, lectures, and assignments that you need to have completed for this week. This, of course, is for the week of May 30th to June 5th. And as a reminder, all assignments assigned in the month of May are due on May 31st, which is tomorrow, today, May 30th, May 31st. Let me look. Let's see. We do have, yes, today. I don't know why for a second there I thought it was still May 30th, but yes, today, which, at the time of this recording is May 31st, you indeed have to have all of your assignments for the month of May submitted to me via email if you did not submit them by the recommended weekly deadline to Carmen. Ooh, we're already experiencing such a strange range of things right now in this lecture. I did want to share a content warning before getting started, which is that graphic on-screen depictions of state violence and gun violence, racist caricatures, stereotypes of Black folks, and prolonged use of the N-word are visible and audible in the viewings and readings assigned for this week. If possible, please view all materials with headphones on and when younger children are not present or able to view your screen. If viewing any of these materials will be triggering, please don't hesitate to reach out to me to discuss alternate assignments that can replace watching these videos. Please note that the learning objectives and focus of this alternate assignment will align with why those texts were assigned. So I always want to include a content warning on weeks that we kind of have things that are a little bit more intensive, just because I want you to be able to have a point of entry to class each week that is accessible for you. I have absolutely no problem if you need some support from me in just navigating an alternate assignment. Don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. I did want to note that kind of in relationship to the note I have here about the prolonged use of the N-word in the viewings and readings for this week. It is a very kind of staunch policy of mine that when we're engaging with text, right, we're partially thinking about kind of what are the rhetorical moves that a creator is making to emphasize or make their point. And it's going to be really important that when it comes to the use of the N-word as a strategy that some creators are using this week to make their point, it is not the business of non-Black folks to comment on or utilize that word in any which way, right? That's just something that I want to make really, really clear, that in your writing, you should not be engaging with and using that word if you're a non-Black person, even if you're a non-Black person of color, right? That's not something to be critical of or to be just commenting on in general, right? That is not the business of folks to be doing. So just want to make that super clear. Otherwise, I want to just really foreground that this week we will be talking about quite a few just really kind of in-depth contextual, in-depth topics that are going to require a lot of context from us historically and also sociopolitically. And it's going to be really important to kind of engage with the readings, as I'll talk about here momentarily. So this week at a glance, you've got 4 music videos to watch, 3 articles to read, 2 lectures to watch, and 1 assignment to complete, which is process post number 2, which you've done process post number 1. So you've got a bit of a reference point for kind of what process posts are going to look like in this class. Now, first, I ask that you watch the video titled Week 4 Overview, which if you are watching/listening to this lecture, you are already doing. And then I'd like you to watch these 4 viewings, which are Jay-Z's The Story of OJ from 2017, Childish Gambino's This Is America from 2018, Lil Baby's The Bigger Picture from 2020, and Megan Thee Stallion's Savage Remix from 2020. Now, one or multiple of these you might have already watched or engaged with in alternate formats like TikTok or I'm trying to think, YouTube, right, Instagram. I mean, it could be possible that you've engaged with one or all or some of them in social media or exclusively in the music video format. But we are looking at 3 music videos this week, along with 1 live performance, which is from Megan Thee Stallion. We're looking at her SNL performance. And across these 4 music videos slash, I'm going to say music videos is kind of a container term here, even though Megan Thee Stallions is not a music video. But across these texts, what I want you to really be attentive to is kind of the interplay between, you know, our protagonist, main character, narrator, right? And the background or the setting that they're occupying in their text. How is this background moving or shifting over time? How is the background or setting, you know, complementing or complicating the message that they're conveying, right? And especially with Jay-Z's The Story of OJ, I want you to be thoughtfully paying attention to the fact that he's using the animation style. With Megan Thee Stallion, we want to be attentive to the fact that it's a live performance. And so there are some spatial limitations in terms of, you know, she's not able to sort of switch to a different scene like you could do in a music video. And so think a little bit about the constraints of it being a music video while also attending to the fact that there are some advantages as well. And then with Lil Baby and Childish Gambino, I want you to be really thinking about ensembles, right? Choreography, groups of people that are moving in unison, groups of people that are moving in kind of different paces, the role of kind of seeing groups of people together, right? Oh, I guess my cat has decided to go back to sleep. Perfect. You know, kind of thinking about those elements of how are some of these videos really relying on multiple people coming together in a uniform or complicated way to really to kind of convey the message, okay? Now, this week's readings, you do have 3 of them. I do want to note that you will need to carefully read all 3 articles in order to complete the questions in process post number 2. Process post number 2 historically has been an assignment that some students do really well on and other students do not so well on, depending on how much time and energy is put into the readings. So I really impress on you to really pay attention to the readings. The Austin Elias de Jesus of Jay-Z's new music video uses America's long history of racist cartoons to deliver a haunting message is relatively short. It's not going to be one that's super, super lengthy, but I can definitely tell when a student has skimmed super fast as opposed to read it, because the question that I have for you in the process post is pretty clear cut. And it's clear from an answer if you actually did that particular reading or not. The SNL Megan Thee Stallion slams Kentucky AG with Savage performance by Daniel Krebs. That one is super short. It will not take you a long time at all. It provides some really important contemporary context that I just looked up because there's randomly a bug in my apartment. This is just a day of like random things happening. So the Rolling Stone piece is going to be one that's important for you in terms of contextualizing her performance, specifically the time at which she does it. And then finally, Blackface, the Birth of an American Stereotype is a lengthier article. It's going to be one that's very, very important to have historical context for understanding Blackface. And we're going to really want to have a firm understanding of this concept and of this issue and of this particular historical just act of racism, because it's going to sort of resurface for us as we're talking about things like appropriation, and as we're just kind of thinking about the lineage of how social media is contributing to the circulation of images, okay? So again, this week's readings are from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is the Blackface article. The Rolling Stone article is the Daniel Krebs one about Megan Thee Stallion, and the Slate article is the Austin Elias de Jesus. Now, one article will provide you with critical historical context, which is the Blackface article, and 2 articles will provide you with a close reading of a primary source assigned for this week. So the Rolling Stone and Slate pieces are meant to be complements to 2 of the articles. I don't have an article, or 2 of the music videos, I should say. I don't have a specific article assigned for the Lil Baby music video, but I feel that these 3 can kind of help to make sense of that video either way. And of course, also the Lil Baby video is really drawing upon the uprisings that happened last summer. And so that being in more recent memory is also something to think about as well, much like the Megan Thee Stallion piece. So then after watching those music videos, I ask you, and after doing those readings, I ask you to watch the video titled Week 4 Lecture, which is going to give you concepts, context, et cetera, things that you're going to need to really do the process post. And finally, I ask that you complete the following assignment, which is process post number 2. So let's kind of walk through that prompt. So it's due Sunday, June 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to Carmen. Now, of course, it's a June assignment, which means you have until the last day of the month in June to submit it and complete it. If you don't submit it by June 6th, it should be emailed to me instead of submitted at Carmen. And the prompt reads, watch the music videos for Jay-Z's The Story of OJ, Childish Gambino's This Is America, Lil Baby's The Bigger Picture, and Megan Thee Stallion's Savage Remix. Then read the articles by the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Austin Elias de Jesus, and Daniel Krebs. Finally, respond to the following 6 questions with short essay answers, 3 to 5 sentences minimum per question, okay? So my first question for you is a check-in. Reflect on your reactions to the 4 music videos that you watched for today. To the extent that you feel comfortable sharing here, write about your reactions to the videos. What kinds of emotions did you experience while watching them? Do you feel that you were able to understand the message or goals of the videos? Did you find it difficult to watch these videos? Why or why not? Were there any moments that you felt uncomfortable, angry, confused, invested? Consider how your positionality may or may not have influenced these feelings. Now, I'm going to talk about and define positionality for you in the in-depth lecture. So if you're not sure what that means temporarily, that's totally fine. But at the heart of this first question is me giving you a space to just kind of reflect on it and react to what you watch. You're, of course, not required to give me an in-depth reflection if that's not genuine for you. If you need a space to just process things that we're watching this week feel really, really heavy. And so I encourage you to just kind of think about this as a space that's more of a stream of consciousness space, as opposed to one that's about a formal response. Okay, I'm not asking you to write like a formal 3 to 5 sentences about, linking all these things together. I'm really just kind of asking you to just sit with what you've watched for this week, because sometimes when we engage with these images and these texts, we're sort of encouraged to consume them quickly and then move on. And so I want us to really pause and give them a moment to kind of settle, okay? My second question for you is background and foreground. In the music video for This Is America, what is happening in the foreground, which is the space closest to the camera, and what is happening in the background, the space furthest away from the camera? Why might Childish Gambino and his creative team have chosen to show certain images, movements, and bodies in the foreground and others in the background? Based on the relationship between foreground and background images in the video, what kind of commentary might he be making about US popular culture and Americanness? So I will kind of expand and elaborate on this background and foreground relationship in the in-depth lecture, but I want you to really be thinking about the fact that, since week 1, we've been talking about sort of, who is our narrator, our protagonist, or our main character, right? Or multiples, if we have multiples, and what's happening in the setting, right? The background, what's going on kind of further away from us as a viewer or as an audience, but kind of having some kind of relationship to or interplay with that main character. This question is all about focusing on This Is America. And what I want you to really be attentive to is, how is Childish Gambino operating as that focal point for us? And what's happening behind him? And what is the significance of that? If the creative team that, does this labor of putting together a music video treatment is electing to put Childish Gambino at the forefront, right, at kind of the space closest to the camera, and they're electing to put other folks towards the background or other actions that are happening in the background, why might that be occurring? And what might that symbolize? I want you to really think about symbolism with this particular question. Question 3 is about close reading visuals. And I ask, rewatch the This Is America music video and focus exclusively on Childish Gambino's facial expressions and body movements. How do his face and body move? Specifically his eyes, mouth, arms, and legs. Identify a scene with timestamps when his movements are particularly striking or shocking. Discuss how the scene you selected might be better understood after reading Blackface, the Birth of an American Stereotype from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I wanted to make a note that if you are struggling to make connections between the video and the article, review the in-depth lecture slides for this week and review some of the examples provided. So question 3 is once again concentrated on This Is America, but here I'm specifically asking you to apply some of the close reading skills that we talked about in week 1, analyzing body language, facial expressions, really kind of honing in on the individual person. And I want you to do that while also connecting this to, this particular article from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, right? I want you to really be thinking about, and this is why you have to read this one in depth, what are they kind of, giving us context for in terms of kind of historical just appearances of Blackface in US popular culture, and how might this be referenced and indexed by Childish Gambino through his movement in the music video, okay? Question 4 is from flash findings to analysis. Carefully analyze how Megan Thee Stallion and her creative team constructed performance of the Savage remix on SNL. Consider how this text makes use of space differently than the other videos assigned for this week, in that it is a live performance rather than a pre-recorded music video. What are some of her strategies for communicating her message? For example, how does she utilize stage design, lighting, costuming, background dancers, choreography, and audio clips in her performance? How does she use these strategies to comment on larger social and systemic issues? So here you're concentrating on Megan Thee Stallion's live performance of Savage Remix. So make sure that you're watching the appropriate video for this week, because obviously Savage and Savage Remix are different. But I want you to really pay attention to how she's doing this live performance on SNL. I want you to really think about how she's kind of utilizing these strategies of kind of, making sure that the set design and all of the associated characteristics and details that go with this performance really complement and suit her performance. So I really want you to kind of focus in on a couple of details of how is she conveying her message, right? How is she organizing the space that's, appearing to us in front of the camera being, SNL, of course, but how is she organizing all of these different pieces and elements before the camera to convey her message in a way that is compelling and engaging? And so that's something you want to be really, really attentive to, especially because with the Daniel Krebs article, it will be helpful to use that as a way to kind of extend your analysis, okay? Question 5 is analyzing a montage. Rewatch the music video for Lil Baby's The Bigger Picture and consider how different clips are edited together to create a montage. Categorize the types of video clips we see throughout the video, for example, protest scenes, performance scenes, etc. Why does this video assemble all of these clips together into a montage? How does this strategy relate to the song's title and reflect Lil Baby's central argument? Okay, so here what we're doing is we're concentrating on Lil Baby's The Bigger Picture, and you're thinking specifically of the strategy of montage, which I talk about in the in-depth lecture, okay? Now with montage, I want you to be attentive to, how is the creative team assembling, sets of images, video clips, footage, etc., right? How would you categorize or label them? I want you to kind of imagine, comparable to you cleaning the garage and you're sorting through things and you're identifying and organizing different bins to put information in. If you were to imagine this creative team having a similar kind of sorting process, what would they sort these kind of clips into? How would they label them? How would they identify them? How would they refer to them, right? And then talk to me about how they're assembled and what is the kind of relevance and potential benefits of assembling them in the way that they are, right? And if we think about the title of the song, which I encourage you to consistently do when we're working with music videos and songs, what perhaps is useful or noteworthy about the kind of song's title in relationship to the strategies that they use to translate the song into a visual form, okay? And then close reading with a secondary source. I ask that you rewatch the music video for The Story of OJ and pay close attention to the animation style that is used throughout the text. Consider how Jay-Z uses this animation style to represent the history of how Black Americans have been represented in US popular culture, for example, in sports, film, and art. Select a scene to focus on in the video with timestamps. Discuss how the scene selected might be better understood after reading Jay-Z's new music video uses America's long history of racist cartoons to deliver a haunting message. 3 things here to note. 1, pay attention to the title of Austin Elias de Jesus's article, because it's pretty clear in establishing what exactly he's talking about. Yes, you still need to read the article, but think about the fact that the title of the article itself is pretty clear-cut in terms of establishing what he's reading this music video to do. Second thing, please address the animation style when you write your response to this question. I have tons of students who don't address that part, and so I have to mark down this question because you're not addressing part of the question, okay? What is important about this animation style? Think really, concretely about the article that you're going to read for this week, the articles in general that you're reading for this week, but also in the in-depth lecture, I'll talk about this a bit as well. What is significant about the fact that we're getting an animation style here, right? And of course, one that is distinct from what we saw in week 1 with Lalo Alcaraz's political cartoons, right? We're once again returning to kind of animation, cartooning, comics, so on and so forth. But I want you to really think about how this form of animation is permitting Jay-Z to kind of extend and complicate some of the messaging of his content of the song, right? How does seeing the music video transform the process of hearing the song, right? And I want you to also kind of contemplate how he's thinking about and thinking through Black Americans' representation in pop culture across different, spaces such as sports, film, art. How is he addressing some of those things in the music video in ways that perhaps complicates or adds to the song itself? Okay. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention to you before we depart for this lecture is that throughout the semester, you'll have extra credit opportunities that I refer to as battery packs. And I call them battery packs because, oftentimes in the semester, you'll have weeks or just times that like you're just not operating at full capacity. And I'll kind of return to this topic of full capacity throughout our time together. But when I talk about capacity, what I mean is like, how much energy, ability, time, just care are you able to exert into something? And this doesn't have to, apply exclusively to school. It's going to apply to anything that you perhaps have responsibilities over or sort of feel a responsibility for. And so with extra credit, I think it's important to offer, namely because I think the process or act of me assuming that you're going to be at your best every week is wildly unfair. Not only because we're in a pandemic or pandemonium, as I've come to call it from watching too much YouTube, but, there's just simply no way that you're going to be at your best on every assignment every week. I just think that's bananas. So it's important to me to offer extra credit assignments that I think of as battery packs, in the sense that, as your kind of capacity is wearing low, as you're just kind of not functioning maybe at just the level that you want to be, you have kind of 3 opportunities this semester to plug in a battery pack or to kind of retrieve a battery pack and plug it into your grade as a way to kind of revitalize, if you're starting to sink or just kind of lose that juice. So your first battery pack option is worth 5 points. Each of the 3 opportunities you'll have are worth 5 points for a total of 15 points. So if you missed the first week check-in, for example, which was worth a total of 15 points, completing all 3 battery packs will give you the opportunity to replace all 3 of those or all of those 15 points. If you did do the first week check-in, but let's say you have a really rough time on one of the process posts or one of the core assignments, I will apply these extra credit points wherever in your grade you're going to need the most help. And I will leave a comment on the assignment that, kind of clearly states this was when your grade was updated. So I want to just kind of quickly walk through battery pack number 1, which is titled Expanding the Syllabus. I want to note that it's worth 5 extra credit points total. That doesn't guarantee that you're getting 5 extra credit points. You have to really demonstrate that you've kind of done your due diligence with the assignment to really earn the maximum points, okay? Now, the deadline to submit this extra credit assignment is Wednesday, June 16th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. It is entirely optional. You are not required to do this assignment. Not required, not required, not required. I want to just kind of emphasize that just in case you checked out. Now, with doing extra credit assignments, they should be submitted to me via email at sweeney.464@buckeyemail.osu.edu, and they should be sent my way as a PDF or Word document, okay? Now, this battery pack is pretty quick and simple. The other 2 are a little bit longer, but the overview of this extra credit assignment is that I'm asking you to propose a text that complements or complicates a week's topical focus. Discuss how adding this text to a week in the syllabus could be useful to discussion, assignments, activities, etc. So what you've got to do is basically think about, each week we've got a topical focus, right? We're focusing on something, some theme, some concept, some issue, etc. And so what you want to do is kind of go back through what we've done so far, select a week that you think would be interesting to kind of add something to, and you're going to want to propose a text that could complement, right? Fit in kind of, harmoniously with what's already there, or complicate, meaning that it could perhaps open up a new pathway, it could sort of change our direction, right? Something of that nature. Now, the prompt says, find a primary or secondary source that you think would pair well with the course theme. So it could be a primary source, like a music video, another political cartoon, et cetera, right? It doesn't have to be the same form as what we've already worked with, the same form as what we've already worked with. So if there's, a podcast, a series of TikToks, all of those are fine. Or it could be a secondary source. So it could be perhaps a YouTube interview, an article, et cetera, right? Discuss how this text could fit into an existing week in the syllabus and how it complicates, builds on, or contextualizes a topic or issue we discussed that week. So your entirety of this paper is all about kind of advocating for adding this text to the syllabus in a particular week and explaining how exactly it would fit in, whether to shake things up or to kind of suit what is already being talked about. Now, I asked that to do this, you write a 1 to 2 page double-spaced proposal in which you discuss how this primary or secondary source could fit into a week of the semester. So you want to stay really focused on the week that you select. Does it have something in common with an existing source for that week? How might this text fit with concepts or context included in the in-depth lecture for that week? So on and so forth. Okay, so you've got until June 16th to turn this in. I want to be really clear that battery packs are not allowed to be turned in at the end of the month. You have to turn in extra credit assignments at the hard deadline that is offered in the prompt. So just note that beyond Wednesday, June 16th, you cannot submit battery pack number 1 to me via email, okay? Exclusively open until June 16th. Again, it is optional. You are not required to do it, but I encourage you to do it if you are worried about your grade at all. But especially more specifically, I really encourage students to do battery packs if they have extra time, if they feel up to it, because it's a way, I think of it as showing up for your future self. You don't know if something's going to happen in your life in a couple weeks. You don't know if just like you're going to get fatigued, you're going to be overwhelmed, or just quite simply, you're taking this class over the summer, right? There just might be a week that you're rushing to do an assignment and you don't have the desire / capacity to do it at the level that you would typically want to if it was the semester, right? Or, kind of fall or spring semester. So I strongly encourage you to do the battery packs. They're a great option for you to practice these concepts and skill sets that you're already developing, but it's going to also be a really helpful way to earn points and apply them to assignments that you're perhaps nervous about or you just anticipate are going to give you a little bit of trouble. Okay, so that is everything that I have for you today with this week 4 overview lecture. You will see me again in this same exact setup as I do the in-depth lecture because it's another week of doing both lectures on the same day. It happens, but I hope that you are having a wonderful day and that you are, hanging in there, able to take time off to rest, to hopefully, start to gradually see your loved ones as things open back up while also staying safe and hopefully getting vaccinated. All right, you all, I will talk to you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.